batteries! Target their flank! Shields holding! Press the attack!
The Ones Who Answer. A story of predators, protectors, and the galaxy's last hope. The twin suns of Veloria rose slowly over the crystal meadows, casting pale amber light across a world that had never known violence. Ambassador Sayla stood at the curved window of the council hall, her 6 slender limbs folded in the quiet gesture her people used when fear had nowhere to go. "The reports grow worse with every cycle," said Elder Moran, his voice barely above a breath. He was ancient, even among their long-lived kind, and the petals that framed his face had faded to silver decades ago. 5 more colonies taken this week alone. Sayla turned from the window. Her wide, luminous eyes carried the weight that every Solari felt these days, a fear with no shape, because their minds had no framework for understanding why anyone would choose to cause suffering. "How many total?" asked Sayla. 22 worlds in 3 months, replied Moran, his data crystal shaking in his trembling grip. "They take everything, the minerals, the technology, the people, especially the people." The Solari had evolved on Veloria over millions of years without conflict. They were botanical beings who drew sustenance from sunlight and the mineral-rich soil beneath their root networks. Violence was not merely foreign, to them it was structurally incomprehensible. Their neural architecture simply could not model the concept of deliberately harming another thinking being. "What do our neighbors offer?" Sayla asked, though she already knew. Elder Moran's petals drooped. The Renian Compact sent 3 outdated patrol vessels. The Geometric Choir transmitted defensive algorithms that will be useless against their warships. The others, he paused. The others are too afraid of Valdrak retaliation to commit anything meaningful. Sayla walked to the center of the hall, where a living light display projected their region of the galaxy. Crimson indicators spread across the outer sectors like spilled ink, each one marking a system now under Valdrak control. The pattern required no analysis. They were moving inward, toward Veloria. "How long?" asked Sayla. "Their advance fleet was detected at the Ishara Junction yesterday," said Moran quietly. "At current speed, they reach us in 8 days." 8 days. Sayla felt her limbs weaken. The Valdrak were something the Solari understood only through the accounts of refugees, immense armored beings from a world of perpetual warfare who had emerged from their brutal home system already fluent in conquest. Their ships were enormous, their weapons were merciless, they had never been stopped. "We must send the appeal," Sayla said finally. The hall went silent. Counselor Brix, the youngest member of their circle, spoke first, her voice unsteady. "To whom? Who in the galaxy has the strength to face the Valdrak? Who would risk their own world for a species they have never met?" Sayla had no answer. She moved to the communication node at the hall's center, a device of living crystal that responded to intent rather than instruction. With careful hands, she activated the galactic broadcast array. "This is Ambassador Sayla of the Solari Council speaking on behalf of all inhabitants of Veloria. We transmit this appeal to any species with the capacity and willingness to offer military protection. We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no soldiers, no means of defending ourselves." She paused, gathering herself. "We have 8 days before their fleet arrives. If there exists any civilization in this galaxy that stands against the destruction of innocent worlds, please hear us. We offer whatever we have in exchange for protection. Please, we do not wish to disappear." The transmission ended. The hall was quiet except for the soft resonance of the crystal walls humming in the morning light. Responses came within hours. Most were polite refusals from species who had their own borders to worry about. A few offered minimal assistance, token forces that would accomplish nothing against a Valdrak armada. By the 6th day, hope had become a performance rather than a belief. The Renian patrol ships had arrived, 3 old vessels that would last perhaps 4 minutes against Valdrak dreadnoughts. The geometric choir's defensive algorithms were sophisticated but designed for a different kind of threat entirely. "Perhaps we discuss terms of surrender," suggested Councillor Devon during the evening session. Several elders nodded with a sadness that had no anger in it, only resignation. "What would surrender mean?" asked Brix. Moran consulted his records. Based on previous conquests, systematic mineral extraction from our root networks, relocation of our population to labor installations throughout Valdrak space, our culture, our archives, our cities erased within a year. The room fell silent again. On the 7th day, as the first Valdrak scouting vessels appeared at the system's edge, an unexpected signal arrived. It came from a sector of space that galactic survey maps labeled as uninhabitable, worlds so hostile that intelligent evolution was considered physically impossible. The message was brief and transmitted on radio frequencies that advanced civilizations had abandoned centuries ago. The voice was unusual, not the harmonic resonance of the Renians or the crystalline tones of other species, something rougher, more direct. "This is Commander Adisa Farouk of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We received your distress signal. A fleet is en route. Hold your position. Help is coming." Sayla stared at the receiver. "Terran? What species is this?" Moran was already searching the Galactic archive. After several minutes, he looked up with a puzzled expression. "No record exists of any species called Terran or any world called Terra. The signal originated from the Cygnus Reach. That entire region is classified as extreme hazard, Class 14 death worlds, gravity extremes, toxic atmospheric compositions, temperature variance lethal to most known life forms." "Death worlds," Brix repeated softly. "Planets where survival itself is a constant active struggle," Moran explained. "The Galactic Survey determined that nothing capable of developing intelligence could persist in such conditions." Councillor Davin shook his head. "It must be a relic signal from some long-extinct probe." But Sayla listened to the transmission again. There had been something in that rough voice, not the mechanical repetition of an automated system. Something that felt like decision, like someone who had already assessed the situation and determined what needed to be done. "What if they are real?" she asked quietly. "What if something actually evolved on those worlds and survived?" No one answered. The question was too large to hold comfortably. On the 8th day, the alarm crystals throughout Veloria began to sing. Unknown vessels detected its system boundary. Configuration unrecognized, species unrecognized, intent unrecognized. Sailor reached the council hall to find Elder Moran at the display, his hands steadier than they had been in days. Something about a concrete situation, however dire, seemed to focus him better than uncertainty had. 14 vessels, Moran reported. They appeared at the outer edge approximately 40 minutes ago. Energy signatures match nothing in our database. Councillor Brix was monitoring communication frequencies. "They're not responding to standard galactic greeting protocols. Wait." She pressed closer to the receiver. "There's something on the old radio band." The rough voice returned, live this time. "Solari Council, this is Captain Yemi Okafor of the Terran vessel Persistence. We are here in response to your distress signal, requesting permission to establish direct communication. Fair warning, we may appear unusual compared to species you have encountered before." The council members looked at one another. "This is Ambassador Sayla," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Permission granted. We are grateful you answered. Switching to visual link in 30 seconds. The display shifted. The council chamber was suddenly looking at the bridge of an alien vessel. Dark, angular, lit by amber instruments, everything hard-edged and functional in a way that suggested its designers had never considered aesthetics worth prioritizing over utility.
Then Captain Yemi Okafor stepped into the frame, and Counselor Brix made a soft sound of involuntary alarm. He was bipedal, like the Solari, but the similarities ended there. His skin was deep brown, his eyes faced directly forward in the configuration of a hunting animal. When he spoke, briefly visible teeth were flat and pointed both, a diet that had required tearing as well as grinding. He wore layers of material over his body. His movements were economical, deliberate, the kind of motion that suggested constant environmental assessment. But his expression when he looked at them was not predatory. It was something Sayla had to study for a moment before she recognized it. Concern. Genuine, uncalculating concern. "Ambassador Sayla," he said, his voice quieter than it had been on the broadcast, "we've reviewed the Valdrak fleet movements. We're here to help, but I need to understand what we're working with. What defensive assets does Veloria have?" Sayla hesitated. "Captain Okafor, we have none. No military, no weapons, no trained personnel. We are not constructed for conflict. Our minds cannot process the intention to harm another thinking being." The captain's eyebrows rose, an expression she would come to learn meant surprise. "No military capacity at all?" "None. We negotiate, we trade, we seek resolution through understanding. When we first learned of the Valdrak, we genuinely believed there had been some error in translation. We could not comprehend why a civilization would build its identity around destroying others." A second figure moved into frame, smaller, with longer hair, still carrying the predator's forward-facing eyes, but with a different quality to her attention, more analytical. "Captain, I'm reading their biology now. Botanical, photosynthetic, mineral-dependent. No competitive resource pressure in their evolutionary history. They literally never needed to develop aggression." "Thank you, Dr. Nusu." Okafor looked back at the display. "Ambassador Sayla, I want to explain something about where we come from. Our world, we call it Earth, is what your survey maps classify as extreme hazard. Everything on it is competing with everything else for survival. We evolved as hunters. We learned to fight because the alternative was extinction." "Your own planet actively working against your survival?" "Storms that level entire regions, temperature swings that kill the unprepared, predators larger and faster than us, diseases, geological violence. Our world spent billions of years trying to kill everything that lived on it. The things that survived learned to be very good at not dying." "That sounds like suffering without end," Counselor Brix said. "It also taught us something," Okafor said. "The only way to survive a death world is to protect each other. You can't make it alone. So when we encounter species being threatened by something like the Valdrak, we recognize the situation and we respond to it." "You would risk your lives for people you have never met?" Elder Moran said with genuine incomprehension.
"Where we come from, if you don't stand up for those who can't defend themselves, you're not worth much." Okafor's expression was simple and direct. "It's not complicated for us." The communication was interrupted by an alert from his crew. He glanced aside, then back. "Ambassador, we need to move into position. The Valdrak Advance Squadron is changing course toward us. I want you to know something before we start. We are not here to control your world, claim your resources, or establish any authority over your people. We're here because you asked for help." "Why?" Sayla asked. The question was genuine. In Solari culture, all exchange had structure, something given, something received. Okafor considered for a moment. "Because it's right, and because someone has to." Commander Reth, leading the Valdrak Advance Formation, had never encountered resistance that required serious thought. 22 worlds, 22 capitulations or brief, futile gestures of defiance before the inevitable. He approached Veloria's system with the calm of a being who had never been made to reconsider a plan. The 14 alien vessels waiting among the debris field of Veloria's outer asteroid belt were small, laughably small. His own flagship was 40 times their size. He opened a channel. "Unidentified vessels, you are obstructing a Valdrak territorial acquisition. Withdraw immediately or be removed." The response came from a being he did not recognize, bipedal, dark-skinned, forward-facing eyes. Something about the configuration triggered a low, instinctive discomfort that Reth dismissed immediately. "Commander Reth, I'm Captain Yemi Okafor, Terran Expeditionary Force. You will withdraw your fleet from this system. The people of Veloria are under our protection." Reth allowed himself a moment of amusement. "You are 14 ships against 240. Remove yourself from our path." "Terrans have never encountered humans before," Okafor said. His tone was calm in a way that felt deliberate, considered. "I'm giving you accurate information when I tell you you don't want to find out what that means under these conditions." "Destroy the small ships," Reth ordered, cutting the channel. The Valdrak formation advanced, 240 vessels in the overwhelming column that had never failed to end any resistance within minutes. The 14 Terran ships moved into the asteroid field. What followed became the most studied engagement in galactic military history for the next 3 centuries. The Terran vessels did not form a defensive line. They dispersed, individually, in pairs, threading through the asteroid debris at speeds and angles that the Valdrak targeting systems were not designed to track. They were not trying to match the Valdrak fleet in power. They were doing something the Valdrak had no framework to recognize. They were hunting. Kinetic projectiles, simple, dense metal accelerated to extreme velocity, struck Valdrak vessels from vectors that made no tactical sense according to conventional warfare doctrine. The Valdrak energy shields, designed to absorb directed energy weapons, offered almost no resistance to physical mass at those speeds. 3 Valdrak ships were destroyed before Reth understood he was being attacked. "Where are they?" his tactical officer demanded, spinning sensor arrays across the debris field. The answer came from a different direction every time. The Terran vessels moved between asteroid formations, used gravitational shadows to mask their approach, struck single targets with coordinated fire from multiple angles before vanishing back into cover. They attacked the fleet's rear while appearing at its flanks. They drew fire toward empty space while striking from positions that should have been impossible to reach. Reth had fought 47 campaigns. He had never experienced the specific, deepening unease of realizing that an enemy was not fighting him. They were managing him, directing his attention, creating reactions instead of responding to them. "They're hunting us," his first officer said, with an expression Reth had never seen on a Valdrak face before. "That's impossible. They're 14 ships. 14 ships crewed by persistence predators with 10,000 years behind them," the first officer replied. "Commander, I think we've made an error." By the time Reth ordered full retreat, he had lost 31 vessels. The Terran fleet had lost none. In the council hall on Veloria, Sela watched the engagement on the long-range display in absolute silence. The mighty Valdrak fleet, the force that had consumed 22 worlds without meaningful resistance, was retreating, scattering across the system's outer edge like debris caught in a wind. "How?" Councillor Brix whispered. "They fought the way their world taught them," Sela said quietly. "They are survivors, and they came here to make us survivable too." 3 months later, Sela stood at the great window of the council hall again. This time she was not alone. Captain Okafor stood beside her, watching the twin suns track across the sky above Veloria's crystal meadows. Below them, in the growing gardens, Terran children who had come with the fleet's support staff were learning from young Solari how to listen to the resonance of crystal formations. The Solari children were learning from the Terrans that gentleness and strength could exist in the same hands. "Your people create beauty the way we create plans," Okafor said. "Everything here looks like it was made to last. Your people protect things the way we grow them, with patience, with intention. Not always patient," he admitted with a half-smile. "Patient enough." She turned to look at him. "Captain, when there are no more distress signals to answer, when the Valdrak have withdrawn permanently and the other aggressive empires have reconsidered their plans, what will your people do then?" Okafor thought about it honestly, the way she had come to expect from him. "Look for species that need friends instead of protection. Learn from people like yours what beauty is worth building toward. Maybe figure out how to grow things instead of just defending them." He looked out at the meadows. "And if new threats emerge, the galaxy will know what to do." "Send a signal," Sela said. "Send a signal," he confirmed. "And somewhere, someone will answer." Below them, crystal and metal caught the amber light of Veloria's twin suns. 2 species, as different as anything the galaxy had produced, had found in each other something neither had expected.
The Solari had discovered that strength in the right hands was not something to fear. The Terrans had discovered that a world worth fighting for looked like this, children learning each other's languages in a garden that had never known war. The age of unchallenged conquest was ending, not because the strong had been defeated, but because something stronger had finally shown up and explained, in terms no fleet could argue with, what strength actually was for. And the lesson, quiet as crystal resonance, was already spreading across the galaxy. The ones who answer distress calls are the most dangerous beings in known space, not because they seek power, because they don't.